Now let's do a deep dive. US President Donald Trump's tariffs have raised fears across the world. But are they really that bad? Will they really shake the foundations of the global economy? Trump definitely does not think so, but he does acknowledge that there will be a price to pay.
No, I'm not concerned. We may have short-term a little pain, and people understand that, but long-term, the United States has been ripped off by virtually every country in the world. We have deficits with almost every country, not every country, but almost, and we're going to change it. It's been unfair.
Trump said that Americans will face a little pain in the short term, but this will help fix US trade deficits in the long term. It reminds me of the saying by the economist John Maynard Keynes, in the long run, we are all dead. So let's put Trump's long-term plans aside for now and focus on the immediate impacts. For now, his tariffs target Canada, Mexico and China. These are the top 3 exporters to the United States. Canada sends them a lot of oil, gas, lumber and aluminium. Mexico sends computers, wiring and medical instruments. Both nations send cars, completed ones and auto parts. Now look at this 2017 report by the Canadian government. It talks about the interconnected auto manufacturing situation. Car parts cross the US-Canada border 6 times before a vehicle is finished. But what happens when blanket tariffs are in place? Then each of these transfers attracts an additional fee, raising the price of the car multiple times over and basically destroying the industry in its current form. It's a similar situation with Mexico. Raw materials go to the US, they are turned into parts, then sent to Mexico for assembly, and the final cars are then sold back in the US. This system will break too. And this is just the automobile sector. The agricultural sector in both Mexico and Canada are intrinsically linked with the US as well. Take a look at this explainer by the Canadian Agricultural Ministry. It describes a typical American breakfast: wheat grown in Canada, processed in the US, cranberries grown in Canada, processed in the US, same with oats, strawberries and pork. This breakfast plate does not work without free trade, not in the current prices, at the current prices anyway. With Trump's incoming tariffs and then Trudeau's retaliatory ones, the price of this all-American breakfast will go through the roof, in the short run anyway. The US could try and substitute its dependence on Canadian agricultural goods. Maybe Americans can do without the famous Canadian maple syrup. But what about tropical food from Mexico? Bananas and tomatoes and the eternally controversial avocados. You can't really grow all that in the American climate, not at the same scale. 63% of US vegetable imports come from Mexico. About 50% of all fruits and nuts as well, they come from Mexico. So with the new tariffs, Americans should get ready for a less healthy diet or be prepared to shell out far more. Prices will almost certainly rise. And no, it's not the exporting countries that will bear them. Tariffs are paid by importers in the United States, the people importing the cars and fruits and wood and oil. These are US-based entities. They will pay a fee to the US government to sell these products in the US market. Now, what usually happens is that they pass on the costs to the end consumers, the customers, the average American people. Basically, it's a new domestic tax. American money will make its way to the government coffers just because they want to keep eating Mexican tomatoes. There are a lot of counter-arguments to this. One is that people will opt for domestic goods instead. They will buy American. Another argument is that the importing companies will take a hit on their profits. They will absorb the tariff costs, not pass them on to customers. Both these arguments rely on a fairy tale: corporate benevolence. Think about it. Why wouldn't a domestic car company hike their own prices? Foreign cars just got more expensive. An American company can also raise their prices by just a little less than their foreign counterparts. The domestic company will start raking in extra profits while still being marginally more competitive than the foreign brand. Either way, it's the customer who loses. And the second argument about importers absorbing the tariff costs, which company do you bet on to do that? Which company is so kind as to take a profit hit to shield American customers? I guess we'll wait and see. One last argument in support of tariffs is the US dollar price. The US dollar value will surge. It's already happening. Tariff supporters say this automatically makes foreign goods cheaper, countering the inflationary effects of tariffs. This also helps improve trade deficits. Now, this argument also relies on an assumption that the dollar value will rise in proportion to the costs, neatly cancelling out any price rises. But really, when does anything happen so perfectly? The dollar value increase will help soften the blow, but it probably won't erase the effects completely. Meanwhile, the dollar rise affects the rest of the world. Take India, for example. The rupee has hit a record low. It fell below 87 rupees to a dollar. This means our imports just got more expensive and our exports became less valuable. Almost every country will experience this. Without deals to trade bilaterally in local currencies, we are all at the mercy of dollar fluctuations. But local currency deals come with their own risks. Trump has threatened tariffs on countries who ditch the dollar. BRICS nations in particular could face 100% tariffs, he said. And this includes India. So all our software and service sales to the US could suddenly become uncompetitive. So far, Donald Trump has just targeted Canada, Mexico, and China. His next target could be Europe and then possibly the BRICS nations. Basically, everyone that the US runs trade deficits with. Everyone exporting things to the United States. So unless the world finds a way to bypass the US, we're all in for a rough few years. We're calling the show Vantage. We hope you like what we've put together for you. Touted as the minimum defense from that video. India's neighbors were the first to send the special edition of Vantage live from the White House throughout this week. Yes, Hindu Mandir in we're on our way to Tel Aviv. City measure, but it's also the perfect way to drive.
I don't think that
Prime Minister of Bhutan, Sherin Tagwe. Welcome to
60% of the world's
office. Prime Minister Modi did the iron.
We were actually
How are you doing? How do you like? It's been 1 year since that meeting. Iron bars separate you from the outside. Out the vote effort. Trump had, it says, and at $4.3 trillion. 4.3 300 billion by 2030. That's what we need to tackle climate change.